But of course, this is just an example. The database is completely general purpose, and it doesn't come with any predefined collections the first time you start it, because you are the one that have to create your own collections based on what data you want to store. And another feature it has in this department is that it can synchronize data from external sources. For example, there is a connector for Google Calendar that allows you to sync down your calendar events into a local collection, and then I guess you can do whatever you want with that. So this is the foundation of Superego, just fairly simple database for your stuff. And okay, so you can put your data in, but then the question is, what can you do with it? And you get by default some basic CRUD interfaces that allow you to explore the data and then add it and delete it, etc. But of course, they're not particularly useful, particularly nice to use. And so Superego allows you to build your own custom interfaces, your own custom apps on top of this data. And this is the, oops, I skipped ahead. This is the second biggest feature, let's say. In the screenshot here, I'm showing an app that I built on top of that fuel logs collection, where I show some stats about my fuel consumption, how much I pay for gas over time, my fuel efficiency, and so on. And it's a very simple app. It's basically just a dashboard, but definitely it's a much more useful view than the basic table with just the bare logs. It's just a list. And it represents well also the category of apps that are a good fit for Superego. That is simple apps that are basically just nicer interfaces on top of a set of documents. Yeah, they are very simple apps, but actually, in many cases, that's actually all you need. Like, you don't need sophisticated features. You just want to see your data in a better way and maybe being able to, yeah, see some stats. And Superego gives you the platform that makes it very easy and also very quick, as I will show soon, to build these types of apps. So yeah, that's the gist of Superego. At the bottom, as the foundation layer, you have a database, and on top there is a platform to run custom apps on top of your data. There is a third feature that I want to mention, just because I think it's very, very cool. And it's the integrated AI assistant that is connected to your data and that you can use as a regular AI chat, but one that sort of knows you because it has access to your information, and so it can draw the answers from there. So in this example here that I'm showing in the screenshot, I'm asking the question, if I buy a used car, electric car, how long until it pays for itself in fuel savings? And to answer the question, the assistant goes into my fuel logs collection and sees how much gas I'm using and calculates how long it will take to recoup the cost of the car. And so it comes back with an answer that is actually grounded in reality of the data that I put in. Which is something that ChatGPT or Gemini or similar apps cannot do simply because they do not have access to that data. And so, they can only give you generic answers. And this might not be particularly relevant for this local first meetup, actually, but it's a cool feature, so I wanted to show it. And speaking of relevant to local first, Superego is local first as an app, or actually I say that it's a local first wannabe, because there are 2 out of the 7 ideals by Switch that are still work in progress and will come in future versions of the app. I should mention that Superego is still an alpha. I'm still working on it. It definitely works. You can try it out even at demo.superego.dev, but many features are still missing, and they will come in the future. And 2 of those missing features are the multi-device synchronization and collaboration between people on the same data. And admittedly, those are the most difficult to implement, and that's also why I sort of haven't gotten around to implement them yet. But it's also because basically I want to implement them in a way, implement synchronization, especially in a way that doesn't require anything more than a file syncing service on the user part. I don't want the user to have to either rely on a server that I host or a server that they have to self-host. I want it to be as frictionless as possible, and so I would like to use some tool that the user uses already, for example, Dropbox or Google Drive, to drive the synchronization. And actually here, if someone has ideas about it, I would like to spar and talk to to people that have thought about this. But anyway, so as I was saying, there is no server on my side, so all the data that Superego keeps is local, and that of course ticks off the other boxes, makes it fast, offline. The longevity it's ticked off just because the app is open source, and yeah, once you download it and put data in it, there is actually nothing I can do to stop you from using it, so it stays with you for as long as you keep it. And it's also private, and it gives you control of your data. As I showed, you have direct access to the content of the database, and actually was one of the main points that I wanted when I set out to build Superego. I wanted to have direct access to my data, so it definitely gives you that. And yeah, so it's local first, almost getting there. And that's basically the overview of the app. I hope I gave you a good enough idea of what it is. And having given you that, now I can go to the live demo part of the presentation, where I show you how to build a small local first app inside of Superego. And to do, yeah, as a demonstration, I will build an app to manage my houseplants and keep track of when I need to water them. And I know it's a bit of a weird use case, but actually it's again a use case that shows the strength of Superego in that I have this small niche need in my life, and maybe there is an app on the App Store that actually does this, but then I have to go and download the app, create an account, maybe even pay us a monthly subscription to basically just keep a simple list of my plants and mark down when I water them. And yeah, I don't want to go through all that hassle. And with Superego, I can just have a collection and then build the app on top of it myself. I can do it very easily, and okay, let me show you. So I'll switch here to the demo version, where I am in the page of the collection creator, which is an AI assistant that allows me, well, helps me create collections in the database. And I hope you still see it. I guess if no one intervenes, you are seeing it.
Yeah, it's coming
So
in.
okay, perfect. Here to create the collection in the database, you just talk to the assistant. So here, for example, I can say, I want to save a list of the plants in my house and keep track of when I water them. Here the assistant figures out what collection it should create and suggests me to create a specific one with a specific schema. Okay, now it's not suggesting, sorry, it's demo effect. AIs are not always reliable. Okay, here it works better. Sometimes it produces it with Spanish names. I don't know why it does that, but okay, let's go with it. And here it's suggesting for me to create a collection with a name, a location, yeah, the time that I last watered it, probably the next watering date, and some notes. So I can just click here to create the collection, and then yeah, it's in the database, and I can add some data. But actually, let me switch to another environment where I already created the collection with quite a similar schema, but I already added some data. So yeah, to save some time, I added 6 plants. And actually, I wanted to show you that to add these plants in the database, I can also use the AI assistant. Just showing you, I pasted a bunch of pictures in the AI chat, and I said, okay, I have these plants in my house, and the assistant recognized the plants in this picture and just inserted in the database for me. And I think this is a very cool way to do data entry instead of having to manually add them all in a traditional form, let's say. But yeah, so here I have this collection with the data, and now I can go and create an app on top of it. And I can do so with this menu, with the apps, create new. And I get into this view, which is the app creator, which is basically a built-in, very, very bare bones development environment, which here gives me a preview of the app, but I can also switch to the code view that shows me the source code of this app that I'm creating. And as you can see, it's just a TypeScript file that exports a React component. And yeah, it's very basic, very bare bones, but well, it also makes it very hackable and very malleable in the sense that I can just type in like the code that I want. I go to the preview, and yeah, I see it appear. So it makes the whole platform quite hackable. And so I can go to the code view and write the app myself. But of course, that's a bit boring. And we have AIs now. So here I also integrated the AI to write the app for me. So I can just ask it to build an app. For example, here I have a prompt. Show my plants as a list of cards where each card shows some info about the plant, the photo of the plant, a link to the details page, a button that allows me to mark that I just watered the plant, and a chip showing whether the plant needs watering or not and how many days since I last watered it. Okay, so the integrated AI assistant gets to work, and
Whoa.
okay, it produced this thing. Oh, nice. I can take a look at the code and I can edit it myself. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't take a look because it, React code written by AIs is not does not align with my style usually. But okay, I just spent 1 second to create it, so it's good enough. And yeah, here I can see the plans. It seems like it one-shotted it quite well, so I can just go and save the app. Super plant. And now it appears here in my collection, and I can test it out. So for example, these don't need watering. Okay, there is this one. I water the plant and it updates it. And yeah, so the app basically works. I can pin it to my as a default view. So every time I go to the houseplants collection, instead of seeing that ugly list, I see this nicer view. And yeah, that's more or less the creation of the app. And the code of the app itself is stored in the database alongside the collection. And the app operates, of course, on the data in the collection in the database. So in that sense, the app is also open local first because yeah, it inherits all the properties of SuperEgo. And now I don't have data synchronization yet, but well, eventually when I will have it working and I will have also a mobile version of the app, you will get the app that you create on desktop just as well on mobile, because yeah, the data synchronizes and so the app synchronizes as well without you having to install it or anything like that. So I think that's more or less what I wanted to show, and I'm also maybe out of time. I don't know if you have questions. Maybe we have a couple of minutes for that. Otherwise, you can write me on Discord or write on GitHub if you have any comment or feedback. I would like, yeah, it would be very useful if someone could, like in this community as well, try the app and give me some feedback on what worked, what doesn't, what features are missing, especially in this app building part. Because yeah, my vision for it is to improve the platform so it can create more and more complex apps. But yeah, of course, I need some feedback to figure out in which direction, in which specific direction to go. So that's more or less it. If there are no questions, I guess I'll give back the mic to the co-presenters.
Yeah, the water presentation, Paula. If you stop sharing, we'll move on to the next one. First is like
Right.
you're blended in malleable software, local data, and all of that. We'll do Q&A in the chat and then actually invite everybody onto the stage for them to kind of get going. Unfortunately, the
All right.
recording didn't start, so just like re-intro. This was Paulo. He was working on superego.dev. And if your mind is not bending a little bit from that presentation, then you need to check yourself. That was wonderful. I want
Right.
to give a shout out for our sponsors, Electric SQL, Jazz Tools, and Zero. These are some of the best ways to build your apps with Sync today. So give them a try as well. Next up, we have Brian coming in to give us a sort of unique talk that I'm excited about. It's about how you do composable systems through story. If you're wondering what that means, well, strap in and let's hand it over to Brian. I don't see you on the speakers list. Can you, am I missing you? Calling Brian. Ah, I see. There we go.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Um,
Hey, hey.
so, welcome. Thanks, Paolo, for that talk. Very nice. I'm looking forward to trying Super Ego. Um, I thanks everyone for your time and attention today. This was one of my favorite spaces, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share Dream, a pattern I've developed for organizing software around our innate grasp of stories. Its DNA is local first, and I hope to impart some of the enthusiasm that it kindles in me. Uh, all right, here we go. First off, just a
You
little bit
haven't
about my
shared yet.
background.
Are you sharing something?
Oh man, broke the cardinal rule already. There we go. All
Hi,
right, we can see
coming in
that.
great. Yep.
Great. Um, so I will start this again. So this is Dream, Composable Systems Through Story. And it's the result of a lot of just hard work and thought over a lot of years on my part, and the part of other people as well. But this is kind of my baby, and I've been a champion of it for a long time. Um, so just a little bit of my background. Uh, I started out for a long time in doing large scale reactive environments, uh, big data integrations like vehicles, real estate, devices, things that require a lot of small cross coordination. Um, and then I just completely shifted focus about 5 years ago and started doing front end web development in TypeScript, where I learned to build in the browser, and then much closer to the user because being on the server, just I got tired of it. And I think that distributed applications can take a lot of their cues from people. And so I'm a paradigm nerd that way. I like finding things that align with how people work. One of my favorite is event sourcing, which I am not going to go into in detail the definitions of it here, but just know it influences a lot of this material. Um, Local first, for obvious reasons, I think that can go unsaid. And then distributed applications as well. The idea that there is no central server, Git and other things that are very viral and tend to stick wherever they land. Um, and then Dream's journey is it also grew up in those environments. Um, and it was iterated a lot in proprietary settings. I think I've officially released 3 versions of it across its lifetime, but I have zero material that I can share publicly about it. Um, but I do have an open source TypeScript implementation in development. I want to reiterate that this is a pattern, so you could do it in anything. I just found that TypeScript was it nailed all of the check marks that I wanted. Um, this is a labor of love. I have a day job and I've just been working on it on my own for a long time and have just refined it and finally am reaching a point where I can actually like make it available to others. And so it's pretty refined and whittled. The pattern is small and well constructed, in my opinion. We'll see what everybody else thinks. And this is also my favorite subject. So um, I'm not going to cover everything here. My goal is to surface a worldview that implies dream. And if a detail leaves you wondering, feel free to ping me. But be warned, you may get more answer than you intended. Uh, so this also is not a tech talk. Um, Stories transcend any particular technology. stories are a human construct that doesn't really have a lot of overlap with the mountains of prior art we see on machine to machine communication. How well can we make machines understand each other? And we humans, we get text boxes with English and other languages, and machines get all this really rich hypermedia, and I was always jealous of that. And so I want to see if we can emphasize human to human communication. So with that, on with the show. This is my favorite quote. Um, Computer science is no more about computers than astronomy is about telescopes. It's a reminder that form follows function and that communication preceded bits and bytes. Um, and this was said by Edgar Dijkstra, who is computer science legend, Dijkstra's algorithm. But he's most famous to me for helping me remember how to spell his name using IJK, which is loop variables. Uh, so um, I want to ask the question, what lies beyond computers? What is it that they bring into focus for us? Is it the symbols that we manipulate? Is it the processes that we move forward and connections that we make? Um, I submit that on the other end of all the electricity and plastic is other people. Computers are conduits to other minds, a medium where ideas interact. And so this turns our question into, without computers, what is it that we're communicating? What exactly are stories? And we know deep within us what they are because we've been telling them our entire existence. Uh, we understand the the shared nature of stories, of the idea that they're local, that you have to be at that campfire to have a talk. So participation means proximity. It's shared because we each maintain a unique representation from our own perspectives on every story. And it's enduring because it remains with those who experience it. It wants to be told. This makes story personal. It's relative to the individual, a combination of knowledge and our own history that we bring to it. Um, but modern systems, in my opinion, don't promote this type of subjectivity. Um, we kind of get impersonal systems, and every system starts with a story. Uh, and the circle grows as people become more interested in hearing things that are going on, and eventually it gets so interesting that we need to make room for more people. This is a success. So more people join and more people join. Uh, but if it grows too big, no one can feel the heat, right? So we start a second fire, and somebody joins there, but they quickly realize they're losing out on where the first fire is. So they want someone to relay that communication for them. Um, and so they do that. They start hearing all the stories, maybe just slightly out of sync with the original campfire, but no big deal. But then they start telling their own stories. And the bigger campfire realizes they are interesting as well. So we set up, communication relays back to make sure that everybody knows all the stories that are being told. Um, and from there, you know, we continue to fill up. So what do? We instance the story again. And so what we get now is, you know, the story strains to connect the disparate elements. They're distant from one another, and they're more distant from any fire than they would be if they were only talking with 5 people or so. And so I'm going to give this a low coziness score. uh, it kind of takes the shape of its home host system. The the if we were to peel away the repeatable element of users and look at the shape of this, that is also a very consistent shape. It's a hard shape because it's formed like crystal. And so the question then becomes what happens if we introduce a second story there? Well, first the purple was, it came about because blue was so popular, and so it's going to want some data from blue, but it's going to be either blue or purple, right? It's not going to be both. So we have to summit the mountains of friction, or ride the waves, either way. Um, and then, once purple starts talking about blue, blue is going to want to know that. So we run into that same dilemma of setting up that bidirectional communication. But both directions of that communication have to kind of suffer that overhead. And so how that's like a lot of stuff to consider when you're a user sitting off to the side wondering what is my relationship with these systems, like how do I hold this burden? And it's really that everyone gets the same experience, right? It's the user. I submit that the user is a lossless operation or a lossy operation. It cuts out so much detail to get that middle of the bell curve, right? It's no one actually has 3.2 children, but we're trying to make user land work like that. And so while we maintain the relationship with both of those systems, they still live separate in our minds as well. And so we experience that same friction. Um, and, you know, we're great at blending stuff, but our heads are the only place where it's blended now. And so right now we're telling the blue and purple stories. But what happens if we introduce a green, you know, or more, or more? What do we do when this structure takes up all the space around us and we find ourselves in the middle of 25 systems whose relationships are all ours to behold? And so computer people are just the ones who can manage this at scale. Um, we're good at relationships. And so we can model those in a way that's actionable for us on a computer that normal people are kind of, I say normal people, wow, that did not come out as I meant it. What I meant was people who don't wrestle with software concepts all the time, instead have to wrestle with the wills of those systems, and they tend to be very rigid, as we can see right here. So what if instead of up and out, we scaled in? Like, let's co-locate the system with the user and see what happens. Let's give them an environment bound to its data. And maybe a second user will come along and they're both interested in those stories. So we start speaking those stories between them. They understand, concepts of blue and concepts of purple, and they're mixing them in their heads and they're getting, those shades. And somebody else may come along and they heard of blue, but they just kind of are off to the side. They don't really have any existing connections. But green and blue have been getting popular together lately. And so somebody learns both of those things and are like, hey, this is really interesting. So I've got blue and I see that blue's popular over in that community there too. So let's go ahead and spread those out and enter up some connections that represent, our interests. And then, things can start expanding. We've now started telling, if you'll notice, 4 stories so far, and we didn't even really blink an eye, because stories just work their way into the network. And so now we can see that we started getting blue and orange together, but it only speaks orange over here. So you know what? I'm going to laser point at this. So here we can see that there's 3 different stories mixing here, and they all have different lines of communication between those who are interested parties. And so this is a node in this network that has a lot of responsibility, right? It's going to be someone who's downstream of other people. Uh, and so because of that, we might want to add, some support back out to those original people who we now realize might be interested in green, and we're interested in orange in relation to green to them. And so then we get a whole new story. I think about this maybe as like looking at a company right now, and this is maybe the CEO, and this is, I don't know, analytics that came along and is like, hey, we're new over here and we're not part of any existing department, but we need to at least talk to blue and purple to start getting some of those ideas cross-pollinating. And so pink and purple make a lot of sense here, but we really still at the core analytics, we really only have to worry about um, pink there. And so now we're going to shore up this area because there was a lot of crosstalk about blue and pink and purple, and so we installed somebody there who is going to match that flow, and then we'll continue to build out this network, and it's organic because what people needed popped up and connected to what was already there. But let's de-emphasize the users and de-emphasize the stories, because stories are lenses helping us sift the relevant from the adjacent. Sorry, I had notes on the wrong side. For example, we can determine the extent of blue. There it is, lenses. Okay, back. We can determine the extent of blue here by just filtering to blue, right? Just putting on that lens. Same with purple, green, orange. You can see this is kind of the backbone of things. And then pink got really popular once we introduced it. So then we can start to see the merging of the colors, the blue and purple, the blue and green, blue and orange, blue and pink. You can also see where purple and green don't intersect. Purple kind of off in its own corner. And green and orange start having a lot to do with each other. And as we go along, we can see these relationships develop, but also decompose them and look at the concerns from every angle. And so, what makes a story? All stories have one trait: they unfold over time. Something happens.
Quick note on time if you're running a little behind.
Cool. How much time do I have left?
Another 5 would be great.
Perfect. Okay. I realize I started my timer before I actually started, so I haven't known exactly how much time I've had. Okay. So other things happen, and we can say that, maybe a game got started of tic-tac-toe, we made a move, and the game advances as we have more things happen. And look, we won the game at the end. And so the game is now over. So if we want to go back and find out what preceded this timeline, we can say that it's a choice. An agent was offered the choice to play tic-tac-toe, which it took. Our story considers this choice, yet it's not bound by it. The narrative has a final say on what occurs. These might be typical business rules, you might say, but I grew up with choose your own adventure books, so it's more about the situations than the rules, because agency doesn't follow a script. So we still have our board and we make a move, but this time there's something different. We have a history that might affect what it is that we can do. It'll constrain our future. And so to make a move, the game must have started. And if there were an error, we might have sent that back, but it went through and we made this move. And then same with the next move that we make. We now consider our prior two events. And hey, that space was already taken, but let's go with the happy path. And this continues. But we have a pattern here. It's the past informs a choice. The narrative evaluates it, and its effects occur. And so this loop, the situation to situation, is deeply ingrained in our experiences. And so we can construct this as, given our history, when we're making a choice, then these are the things that happen. And so now, given that timeline and so on, we get into a loop that allows us to essentially originate knowledge by considering our history. And so this, we have now chosen our own adventure all the way through a story. Um, and this diagram is dense, but it's worth it to see across time, right? But also, this is the plot of the story. When you look at this, this is what the users will experience. This is what people will have in front of them, sans any actual technology yet. So I just want to boil it down to the essentials. And we have these four concerns, which are choices. Those are prompts that are afforded to the audience. The narrative, which is the situational flow from choices to events, the rules. The events, which are the little packets of information and experience we accumulate in our past. And timeline, which is a persistent representation of the past. It's an actual corporeal thing that you hold. And so with all of these together, this is a topic. And a topic is strongly consistent because they see all their choices in sequence. There's no concurrency in the topic. Just like us, we multitask okay, but we're better single-threaded as people. And then the knowledge, they retain information applicable to the narrative. So they blend all that together to enact agency through decision making. And so a topic is a strongly consistent knowledge boundary. Uh, and I see I'm about at time. So luckily I'm about at the end of this as well. So I want to say that unfortunately I have something hidden on the slide so I had a bigger version of this, which is essentially the four colors boiled down to a gradient. And I wanted to point out that we actually have multiple instances of topics. A topic is not just one story and then it's over and it never happens again. And so we have all of these running in parallel, but they're strongly consistent with themselves, but eventually consistent with others. And so then let me go ahead and just pop through the rest of this. So so when we receive a choice, we make a move. Then we can look at which game is specified by that choice and determine, hey, we're supposed to route that to route A timeline, not B or C. So every choice has a target timeline that it lands on. And so each timeline can use the ID of subjects coined in other timelines. No, where is the rest of my slide? There it is. So this is another story, and this story might just have a topic about A, but it's a comment story, right? And so this is the story of commenting on games that we've played. And so we can also route to A in this story and use A as the ID of a topic, but the game story had no idea that the comment story was going to exist when it was written. And so you can stack stories like this by using the identifiers. And so throughout different stories, but for the same logical subject, so that an entity becomes not like a physical thing in a database, but a common thread through a bunch of different stories in topics that are about that entity. And so stories become something you tell in your own context about the things that matter to you. And so that makes them very personal. And so I'll wrap up by saying, what systems will your stories tell? And say that I have a lot of other core features that are solved, but they're out of scope here. If a detail passed you by, again, hit me up. I would love to talk about this stuff. That is the end of my talk. Thank you very much for the attention and the extra few minutes.
No
I
worries.
appreciate it, everybody.
If you might stop sharing, I can get the next one. Thanks for that talk, Brian. And if you can drop the slides into LoFi.so, we'll be
Yep.
able to kind of get that going. Next up for the builders, we got superego.dev going first, which showed us malleable software like a personal data store and an AI kind of whipping up apps on the fly. I cannot beat that, but we'll try with Capsule, which went from just video editing to collaborative video editing and having sync. Met Yurko at the Sync Conf and pre-conference meetup, and I was like, "Yo, like, let's have you jump on for the November one." And he was gracious enough to kind of jump in. Without further ado, over to you, Yurko.
Uh, Hey everyone, and thanks Jans for introducing me. As yeah, it's I work at Capsule as software engineer, so I wanted to make a note. We're like implementing. We are on the way to implement like collaborative video editing. So this talk gonna be I'll share my screen. So this talk gonna be more like very technical and very little presentation. So I'll basically will be sharing with you uh, like our internal like stuff. You know, like we have like heated discussion. We are early, like we Series A startup, and we don't have time. We need to work fast, and I'll be showing like our discoveries and our problems, and I hope you'll find it useful. And first I'll start with the video editor itself. So, and how it works. So basically, I also will be doing parallels with Figma as one of the most like famous collaborative editors, and I'll be showing how Figma helps us, like how it inspires us, and uh, how we look at sync engines as like our like our, like tools of the future that's supposed to bring make collaborative easier. So we have this like dashboard projects and design systems, and like this is basically how it works. We have uh, video editor, and
So right now
it's
we just see the Capsule AI-driven video editor for brands. Are you on a different slide?
uh yeah, yeah, I switched. I don't know why it didn't update, so let me start again. So yeah, you
Okay.
should see this now. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we have this dashboard, and we have like design system projects. So I'll go straight to the projects, and I'll start like diving like into technical things. So we have timeline, and we have transcript, and you can like do transcript based video editing, and it basically cuts out video on the go, and you can restore, and you can add like graphics, and it works.
That is
So
cool.
yeah, so you can like do all the editing like as you need, and it works really fast. You have design systems, so you can even sorry, I'm an admin, so you can see all the design systems. uh, but but you can switch design systems basically, and yeah, you see, so it's different. So they're compatible, and like this is basically our product. So, and right now you can share so other people can access this thing. And yeah, I don't know, maybe I could share it with you if you want. So if you go there, you won't be able to edit, so you don't have this button. And soon, like like a few days, you will have presence, so you will see who is there, right? So this is like our very first step. And we were doing research, so we were like exploring what's possible. And yeah, I'll go to Figma. So here, like
We're
what we
still on
have.
the
So
video. Sorry. Maybe
oh,
share
you
your full
still?
screen. You need to switch it
Yeah,
up more.
I'm sharing my full screen. Yeah, I'm sharing. Let me try again. Um,
That looks cool though. I've tried
yeah.
Descript. It's just it didn't match the hype for me. This might be something that I need.
Um, yeah, we actually, like many people, Descript is like an older app everyone knows, but our app is like new. I personally find that our UI to be better, more intuitive, and we like target non-professional video editors. Or like I used to work, I have design background, so I used to work a lot with like After Effects and stuff like that. I don't want to work with that anymore. Yeah. So like here's basically what we have. So we have database, we have backend server where like we have dashboard data, we have project data, we have like all the data, like, and this is like our register basically, and we have users, and this is what we don't have right now. This is what we want. This is our intention. And we have renderer. So our video is like we'll render it on the server. And this is like one of the most complicated things we have. And right now, so our goal to bring collaboration. So we need to sync video, we need to sync media files, and we need to and by the way, we already solved this, and this is very hard. So, and I remember when I just joined, like things were slow, and but now, like you were able to see how fast and instant all the updates are, and so and imagine like multiple people could have this like real time, which we are working on. And the problem, the next problem we have is sync persisted project data. So we have project data that basically the core, like that we use to render the scene. So the thing I showed you, we have project data, and we also have undo redo, which works, but with when we need to implement the new like migrate to sync engine, we need to re-implement it and make it more complex basically. And we also need to sync state, which is not persisted. This is actually optional, and I find it to be the easiest part. Those two are medium and media hard compared to, for example, sync video. And I'll walk you through these things later. But right now, uh, like the thing I started looking at was Figma, of course, and also on the sync conf. Uh, we had a Rushi, and she was talking about two sync engines at Figma. And this is, I think, this is really smart, and especially for um, product that's kind of working on like going toward this sync data. So what they have, as you probably know, they have live graph. I'm sure there are plenty of like technical people here, so I won't be like telling you how Figma works. But basically, they have live graph that for everything but project, right? And they have a real-time collaborative sync engine for project data specifically. This is like our use case almost. And uh, and how it works? So they use atomic updates of a single value, of a single attribute actually. And yeah, I've been like using this their videos that they use, and So they basically update, from what I understand, they try to update as like they try to make everything into one update, fit everything into one update. They even combine parent and position into a single property. So they have it in the one um, uh, atom, basically, attribute. And they also use triplets, and I'm sure you know about triplets and like data log and stuff like that. Um, so, and one thing I discovered myself was really smart, that, for example, reordering, right, was one of the key discoveries that I made reading Evan Wallace's articles, is that he uses, like, with reordering, if you have order, you have to update like multiple parameters, attributes, right? But with fractional indexing, you have to update just one, because like if you use fractions, like you see how it works when you insert a new object in between of these two objects. You just use this parameter as an index, and you don't have to update anything else. And this is kind of really smart, and was like um, yeah, so I won't be saying anything more about this. So this was like the key point that reduces the size of the transaction. And the problems with Figma, I discovered that um, there are many gaps. So I was reading, and I'm Figma user myself. I was like, yeah, that sounds cool, but there are so many like use cases that I just don't understand how they fit in like how to match those articles with the reality that Figma has. So, and I was they're missing something, those articles. And then I kind of started also reading. I discovered InstantDB, as you probably know it, and they use basically data log. That's where I started reading Stepan's essays, and I found it to be really interesting. And this was like an extension of Evan Wallace articles for me to dive deeper. So if I would highly recommend reading them if you want to learn more about sync engines and approach how triplets works basically. Um, and after reading that, I like realized that I developed like certain like rules of how to model data, and like certain like principles. And so first I started like I naturally started reading set theory, and because that's the key basically to the data modeling for the video and like creative software. And I also discovered that using actions and transactions is the key. And I realized that it's like, for now, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's really impossible to fit everything into one atomic update, because like, for example, if you make a split in the timeline, it updates so much attributes that it's like really hard to like imagine how it can be uh, done without transaction that has multiple updates. And also use set operations like union, intersection, diff, and like this basically. And I'm sure if you worked in creative software, you use it all the time. And also another principle is keep transactions as minimal as possible to prevent conflicts. So and also on SynConf, one of the presenters, I can't remember who exactly, said that collaboration and sync is basically uh, transaction design. And that's how I think about building the video editor, collaborative video editor. I see it as like everything is like transaction design, basically. And also another problem that we encountered was, so our rendering, so you have project state and you have renderer. So you need to render video, those two different instances like this, right? So we have renderer and we have users. And the problem with that is that you have UI, right? And UI is UI, and it's like you need to have interactions, you need to have drag and drop and stuff like that. And renderer has different purpose. So the purpose of a renderer is to render you the linear like timeline. Basically, it's a set of frames, right? And that's it. And audio. So it needs to operate global timing, not relative timing. And with users, you want to make things fast. You want to have small transactions, and you want to use fractional indexing to reorder clips. So those two completely different beasts. And basically, for UI, you want to avoid global timing. So always use relative. So you have multiple clips. If you have some metadata or segments like transcription, I don't know if you see my, yeah, you're not seeing when you can see when I switch the windows, unfortunately. But basically, yeah, relative timing is the key for UI, but global is good for rendering. And you always can convert that. You don't need to sync global timing. You can convert that from relative timing to global on the rendering side. And collaborative software is about transaction design, as I said. And another rule that I developed is do not persist data that can be calculated, basically, because it bloats the transaction size and the persisted data. And in nowadays, like, even we have some cases when calculation can be heavy. But what I think is that you can always increase calculation with like WebAssembly and stuff like that. So, but if you create conflicts, it kind of reduces the user experience. So I developed like four, I would say, 4 pieces of what we want to achieve. And first, this video is already solved and it requires just some adjustments. Second one is presence. So you share like cursor, you share like playhead position, maybe drag and drop if you want to dive like fancy. And this one is easy. This probably is the easiest part. Persistent data is the project data, basically, the one that gets rendered. And topics for event subscriptions, this is like also very, very easy and very useful. And yeah, and also our renderer is a very complex machine, and it also needs to have a client. So it's not it doesn't live in browser. It has its own server, and we basically want it to know what's going on the user side, and we want to that renderer know everything. That would be cool. That again, this is like my personal opinion. This is not something that Capsule like approved and we are building. This is like my dream, right? So like we want to share cursor, playhead position when dialog is open, basically all the non-persistent state. And with persistent sync, we want to share clips, transcript data, and design system comments. And with events, we want to know like when user pressed play, pause, or requested download and stuff like that. And this is like an example of the action. So this one is like the most interesting, I think. So split clip action, and where we basically delete the original clip and we create two new clips, and we do it just to prevent conflicts, and so that when you undo, you sort of you create the new object, um, with the new ID. And also for undo redo, we have to implement certain acknowledgement mechanism, and yeah, so this is like work in progress. We have like some movements in that area, but we're gonna be working on that. And lastly, I think I have like a few minutes, right? Lastly, again, this is like very like, you know, scrappy data, but it's basically like our result of how we tried things and how we were reasoning about different sync engines. Not every sync engine is presented here, and maybe none of them are some of them are not even sync engines. There are just some similar tools. But basically, what we wanted to have is like, first we really want backend real-time client, and it would be awesome to have it self-hosted, just to have some stability and peace of mind, you know. And data structures, I personally really love triplets data structure with those data log, like, you know, fact queries, and we like also development experience was important for us. The problems with real syncs is that first, like not that many problems, but there are trying to build tools to solve general problem. Like for example, they basically want to have like the new Apollo client or something like that, you know, like, so it's like the tool not necessarily built for collaborative editing, and why is that is that I find that they're not giving enough tips on how to model your software, how to actually think about like the architecture, how you model data. And during SynConf, I kind of I noticed that some people say they mention something like there is always like you're always gonna have users that design data in the wrong way, the way you don't like. So, and they basically try to, you know, like satisfy everyone. And I find this is not good for collaborative approach. So if you, because when you develop collaborative software, it has to follow certain like patterns, and that's why we read Figma blogs basically. And the next thing is most of them lacking and do redo, like how they don't even provide you like plan or like tutorials or anything like how to build this, and so you need to figure out yourself. And eventually it ended up being like so they give you transactions, but they don't give you actions. They don't give you like how to go from this to this, or how you do you need to delete that object, or like what to do with IDs. So they don't give you this those things, and you need to figure out them basically. And so you need to design your transactions a certain way. You need to be smart about that. And um, it doesn't mean that you can't build Figma with that. You can, but again, you have to be smart with how you use sync engines. And the only sync engine is I found to be following like this and selling this solution was live blogs. They kind of, yeah, they have all the demonstration for the undo redo stuff, and like real time, and it's kind of cool. I like it's, but we try to be like, we try to look wide. We want to consider different options, and this is just like one of the examples where live blocks is like ahead of ahead of other sync engines in terms of like how they sell their product basically. And but it doesn't mean you can't build stuff like that with other tools. And there is also mm, I like Zero is one of the sponsors. It was like they were very early when I was doing this research, so I'm excited to try it again, to be honest. And I also Jazz. I just learned about it at the SyncConf, so also kind of looking into that. And InstantDB, again, I was reading their blog posts. That was like a huge inspiration to me, and I think they're doing great job in not about only like building the tool, but also educating people how to use it. And yeah, so I highly recommend reading their blogs
All right.
in addition to Figma. And yeah, I think I finished. So thank you.
All right. Wonderful. That was a good roundup, Yurko, and I'm sure like people will have questions. What we usually do is we end the recording and the broadcast